Hello there, this one is called the Kotoko effect. I'm very grateful for the books and the TV and the films that come my way because there's always so much to be learnt from them. In fact, that's a really helpful observation. If you declare an intention that all information that comes to you will give you something of value, it's certainly in my case that's what happens. So I came across this most unlikely TV show called Mischievous Kiss, parts 1 and 2, 2 seasons. And the basic storyline is fascinating, which is you've got Kotoko, who is a young Japanese school student, and she falls in love with one of her fellow students. But there's a really big issue, which is that she is in the lowest grade intelligence in her year group, and he's in the highest grade intelligence in her year group. And there are a whole bunch of other circumstances which all add up to making it look like she's got no chance. And what she does is she gives us this beautiful example of unbending intent, because she is aware her feelings are so strong she's not going to let anything stand in her way. And season 1 is about how she manifests that unbending intent and actually gets the guy to pay attention to her, fall in love with her, and they get married. Right, that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about what happens in season 2. So her major breakthrough in life, apart from all I've mentioned, is when she realises that what she wants to do is to be a nurse which supports her partner Naoki in being a doctor, so they both go into training to do these things. And it's when she's just qualified as a nurse that we take ourselves into this story I'm going to show you now. So there's a situation that her husband, Naoki, is a intern, and he's therefore not fully qualified, but there's an emergency and the patient's going to die if he doesn't take action. And likewise, she's a very recently qualified nurse, but she doesn't have really much theatre experience. They're both outside of their comfort zones. They're both experiencing a very powerful initiation. Now, as you can see, the film from the TV show as it's up there on the screen for you, the first thing that happens to her is she goes into her rational mind because she's in fear, and quite rightly so. She hasn't got a lot of experience. She's got very little experience in it. Here we are, she's with her husband and they're both working together as medical personnel, which is really her biggest dream. So isn't it ironic that sometimes when our biggest dreams manifest, that's when things start to fall apart? So the Kotoko effect that I'm describing, which you can see unfolding on the screen in front of you, is a situation where a person has wanted something for so long and finally their full dream is manifest. This is the very thing they always wanted, and then all of a sudden things fall apart. And what you can see is it's her rational mind's questioning and fear that takes her out of the present moment, which is why she didn't take proper attention to the observations when her husband says, and what is the heart rate and the blood pressure, and she got the heart rate wrong. That's because she was so in her head at that moment that she actually was not able to function. And finally, there we go, all the instruments are all over the floor. The whole thing's a complete nightmare. Now, I'm sure you know this, but in case you don't, let me explain. I've worked in hospitals. I know what aseptic technique is. So as soon as the instruments are on the floor, and there she is in her completely aseptic gloves and clothes she's wearing, and she's grovelling on the floor, even if it's a sterile operating theatre, she's compromised sterility, so everything's become a total mess. And this is a situation that when I had some chance to meditate on it after watching the episode, I realised this has happened to me many times, and it happens to all of us, that we can get ourselves into a situation where we're doing something that's really important and it gets messed up because our rational minds get in the way and take control in that moment. And it's always the fear that's the problem. It's the fear that causes the rational mind to spin these stories about what if this and what if that, and the next thing you know, you've got the metaphorical situation of all the sterile surgical instruments on the floor of the operating theatre and the whole thing being a complete disaster. So this is really what I want to talk about. We all have these experiences, so it's a matter of what do you do. Now, the difficulty is, at such a moment, is that the rational mind has really got a huge grip on us, because the very thing we didn't want to manifest has just happened, whatever it might happen to be. And I'm sure, like you, I get a lot of these experiences in my life when things go so totally horribly wrong. And what I'm most likely to do in that situation, when I can see there's any element of it being my fault, probably 100%, then what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to go into judging myself, criticizing myself, and therefore being completely outside of the present moment. And yet, what is demanded of us at such crucial times is to get out of these judgments and these thoughts and to get into the present moment. So what then happens in the following episode is that because Naoki can recognize that his wife is now completely lost in her rational mind and there's no way she has the power at that moment to drag herself out, he's going to have to step in there and help her. And so that's what he does. So he gives her very specific orders. And here's the beauty. The guy is completely centered in the present moment. So he gives her orders without any trace of anger or irritation or bitterness or frustration. None of those are present, because he knows that the most important thing is not his ego, and it's not her ego either. It's the guy on the operating theatre who, on the table there, who's having an operation done on him, and if the operation isn't done right, he's going to die. That's the only thing that matters at such a moment. And so if you're with someone and you've had one of these disastrous moments, then maybe they're able to bring you back. You may find yourself in a situation with somebody else who loses it, and then you can be fully present for them in the moment. So, respect to everyone who's ever been in a Kotoko moment, because it does happen to all of us. Go into your breathing and then ask yourself the most important thing now, and then get on and do it. And there's a step you can do even better than that, which is actually to not even bother to ask yourself the question, because that actually delays things even that small amount, even if it's a second or two to ask that question. Even better, breathe and take action. If ever you get into a Kotoko moment in your life, drag yourself out of it with the breathing and take action immediately to rectify the situation. Thank you very much.